Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining IEF's Conservation Chat. We're just watching some people get logged on here. So welcome to everybody who's joining us this morning, this afternoon, or evening, whichever time you're at. I know that there are a lot of people from all over the world who are here on the call this morning, so welcome. Before we get started, I wanted to just go over a few housekeeping items. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Julie Bates, and I'm the Donor Relations Manager at IEF. We also have our other IEF team on the call with us today, Sarah Conley, our Conservation Coordinator, and Deborah Olson, who is our Executive Director.
Hello, everyone.
So we just really appreciate y'all supporting our conservation chats. And just a note, we are recording these sessions. And once we get started with the presentation, if everybody could put their cameras off, except for the presenter, and their microphones on mute to help save bandwidth. And as we go through, if you have any questions, please put those in the chat and we will get to your questions. And maybe if we have time at the end, we will open up to some live questions. So we will just see how things go. And in the meantime, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah, and she's going to introduce our speaker.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. We are so happy to have today's speaker. If you're following our conservation chats, you know that we have teased her as a guest for a little while now. We have Claire Willaume. She is the country director for the Gabon Gorilla project for the Aspinall Foundation. And don't worry, she does elephant work too. They're working on forest elephant demographic assessment project that IEF is supporting. Claire has a lifelong history of living within protected areas and working in wildlife conservation. So she's quite an expert with true lived experience. She has worked and studied sustainable development and has hands-on experience throughout Africa. We are so happy to have Claire here today. Claire, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. So, hi everyone. I was saying, as Sarah was saying, I'm Claire Willaume, and I'm really happy to be here today because last time we didn't work out with the internet connection here in Gabon. So I'm happy to be here today with you all, and I will welcome all your questions about the elephants.
Wonderful, thank you. So go ahead and start sharing your slides and we can get started. I know everyone's eager to learn all about forest elephants.
Okay, if you just can confirm that you can see the right slide.
Yes, we see your first slide.
Perfect. So as we were saying, we'll speak today about the African Forest Elephant Project that we are doing here in Gabon. So we started last year. So we are almost at the end of the project. So let's start. I will start speaking about first the African forest elephants, because they are species that are not really well known. People mostly know about the African savanna elephants. So I will start with just introducing this really beautiful species and unknown. So about forest or savanna elephants, it's a big difference actually, because there are different species since 2021. So the forest elephants are living more in West and Central Africa. They are smaller than their savanna elephant cousins. They weight less, and their herd size is less than 10 individuals. And for the savanna elephants, for example, there are between 10 and 70 or more individuals. So of course, it explained because they are living in the forest. So they are more elusive animals. It's difficult to see them. And it's also difficult to count them because they are really hiding in the forest really well. And sometimes they can be 2 meters away from you, but you don't see them. So that's why it was so difficult first to know how many forest elephants are left. So let's see about the population. as they are the more elusive and smaller than their savanna cousins and live in smaller groups, as I was saying, it's difficult to estimate. But as you can see, it's the IUCN map. I will try to get the pointer. Maybe it will work or not. Yeah. So as you can see, there are possibly residents in Gabon and north of Congo, but they lived in DRC before. We don't know if they are still living in most of the places where they used to live. And we have small populations too in Western Africa. So they are living in only 25% of their historical range. So a regional study led by the Wildlife Conservation Society and published in 2013 documented as a 65% decline in the forest elephant number between 2002 and 2013, and largely due to poaching of ivory. The same study concluded that more than 50% of the remaining forest elephants were found in Gabon, despite accounting for less than 50% of the species range, making the most important country for the forest elephant conservation. And that's why we thought that it was really important to work on the forest elephant here in Gabon, as the national park where we are working is one of the highest density of, supposed to be one of the highest density of forest elephant there. So the importance of Gabon was confirmed by the National Genetic Census, estimating that we have more than 95,000 elephants in the country, and they are using more than 93% of the territory. We are really lucky in Gabon because we have more than 80% of the country, which is still a forest. And that's why most of the elephants and other wild animals are still living outside the national parks. So I will talk just a little about our gorilla protection project and how it started. So we are the Aspinall Foundation. We started a project in Congo, and after we went to Gabon to do the same to help the gorillas there. So it's mostly for Western lowland gorilla rehabilitation and reintroduction, but we are also working on all the other species that we can, especially in the Bateke Plateau National Park that we helped creating in 2002. Sorry. At first, we managed the anti-poaching unit in the national park, and now the anti-poaching unit is settled. We are just helping financing them every year. So as during feeding and watching the gorillas, we saw so many elephants, and that's why we decided to help to do the forest elephant demographic assessment in Gabon, and especially in the Bateke Plateau National Park. So our goals, we wanted to do, as I was saying, the population assessment. We also wanted to do some DNA collection, and we wanted to continue our anti-poaching support. So first, for the camera trapping. So we put 16 cameras around the park in 4 interest sites, and we were collecting them once a month. So there were specific areas as salines. So it's where elephants like to gather and to get the minerals that they need, and also just to bath, because forest elephants need to be completely immersed in water at least once a day. And we also put some cameras along elephant paths and next river crossing paths. So we put our cameras in some iron boxes because the elephants can sometimes want to smash our cameras. So we need to protect them. So as I was saying, we have some big beaches where the elephants like to gather. So it's one of the places. And this one is one of the river crossing paths where we put some cameras because we know that elephants are going here every single day. So this is the national park here. So we can't really access this part because it's really difficult. There is no path by car or with the boat. The river is too small. So we would need to walk for a day or more to go there. So it's difficult to go. So we went where we know that there are a lot of elephants, because most of that part there isn't more elephants, because it's mostly savanna, and forest elephants don't really like savanna. So we have 4 interest sites, one in the middle of the park, one at the border, and one where we have most of the saline over here. So it's just the border of the park, so it's still included inside. So we want to identify the goals was to identify the individuals, to estimate the population, and also to gather some information about the behavior. So we got some really nice footages of babies, of the families, so small groups, and for the males too. Males are most of the time are alone and just gather with the families, with the herds when they are next to the water. And we also had a lot of other animals such as gorillas. This one is Bumongo, one of our gorilla. But we also got some buffaloes, leopards, small duikers, so they're small antelopes. So many other animals that we can even see with the elephants on at the interest sites. But camera trapping have some difficulties. The elephants, we don't really know how, but they can sense cameras, maybe some kind of sounds that we can't hear as humans, but they can. So they like to smash our cameras. We lose several of them, even with the cases that we wanted to put. They just take it out of the tree and smash it on the ground with their feet. We also had problems with rain and high humidity. Most of the time where the humidity in the forest is between 70 and 100% of humidity. So we have some problems with the cameras getting blurry because of that. And also, as it's the tropical forest, we have a lot of insects, termites and ants that are just going inside the cameras and destroying it. Or other animals. Sometimes you have animals on the path and you can't access the cameras. And yes, a lot of difficulties that we're trying to go through. After we worked on the DNA collection, we did some samplings by collecting DNA on fresh feces. So the feces needs to be less than a day old to be able to collect something. You can't have any rain on it because the water will destroy the DNA sample, the DNA cells, sorry. So that's really difficult, and well, you need to find really fresh, and the elephants don't like sometimes to hide their faces. We did it on the 4 sites where we are working on, and the objectives are first, we can identify individuals. It also helps to estimate the population, but mainly to create an international genetic map. That means that we use GPS. Every time we get a sample, we get the GPS point, and with that we geolocalize, and it will be submitted to the National Reference DNA database, and they will use it for investigation on the geographical origin of future national or international ivory seizures. That means that if they get some ivory somewhere in the world, they can say, yes, we know where this elephant comes from. If it comes from Gabon, or if it comes from Congo, or if it even comes from our park. So that's really important for anti-poaching measures around the world. So as we're talking about anti-poaching, we are doing monthly patrols, and that means that we can check if we have some poaching in the park. Sometimes we can find some poachers that were get with the cameras. You can see here, there is a rifle. So this man is carrying a rifle. And here it's an old fire camp that they were using inside the park. And we know that if people are just camping in the park, that means they will go and for several days in the park. So doing a lot of patrols helps to build a presence on the field. Poachers knows that we are here, so they don't want to come next to us. And we're also helping to clearing the access for the rangers. The rangers don't go all the time on the park. So we help cleaning the rivers because it's the main way to access all the park. And sometimes you have trees falling over the river, so we need to cut these trees, clearing paths, walking paths too, because if it's the rainy forest, so if you just wait for 1 or 2 months, the path will completely get blocked by the vegetation. In the end, we got 1 year of data. We did more than 50 patrols in the park. We got more than 6,000 videos of elephants. We are still in the process of analyzing it, so I can't share you the result because I don't have them yet. And we collected more than, just 50 DNA samples. And we realized that we still have a lot to learn about forest elephants. Thank you for your attention, and if you have any question.
Thank you. That was great. And thank you for starting out with some basic facts about forest elephants and things. I know that's kind of a new species for people. Growing up, I know everyone's like, oh, there's Asian elephants and African elephants. And then all of a sudden, conservationists and scientists decided, nope, there's 2 kinds of African elephants. So I appreciate you giving a background on that. As people get their questions into the chat, you mentioned that forest elephants in particular needed to get immersed in water once a day. Is that something that you found that all elephants need, or forest elephants specifically? Can you talk more about that?
I'm sure about forest elephant, but I think that most elephants in general need to immerse them in water really regularly because they don't, except for dust. For example, you have desert elephant that can stay in the desert for a long time. So they are savanna elephants. So they can't get immersed in water all the time, but they're using dust to clean themselves and not water. So yes, forest elephants are of course more dependent on water than savanna elephants. For Asian elephants, I'm not an expert, so I can answer. I can't be sure about that.
Sure. So in what you've studied, you don't see them dusting themselves like other species do.
No, I've never seen them dusting themselves.
Very interesting. Okay. More questions in the chat. Besides the things you talked about, the genetics and identifying individuals, things like that, what else specifically do you want to learn about forest elephants, maybe within your project and maybe beyond?
What we would like to know is how far they can travel. We're not sure about that part because we know that they are kind of highway for elephants in the whole country. And we think that if we do some individual identification, we will be able to know how far these elephants can go. And I'm almost sure that they can even go farther, kilometers and kilometers away from the park, maybe in other, even going to Congo because it's just right next to it. So it's a possibility, yeah. It's about the population movements. I think it would be really interesting to know.
Okay. Have you collared any elephants in that to look for that type of thing?
Our project didn't color any elephants, but I know that there are other projects that want to do that. But it's difficult for elephants, for forest elephants, because it's the same. They are living in the forest, and GPS is not really easy to get through the forest. So the vegetation is so high in density that it's difficult for the GPS signal to go through that density. So maybe only when they are crossing savannas, but that's not all the time.
That makes perfect sense. And that kind of dovetails into another question that we got. Can you talk more about the challenges you have in studying forest elephants? So the density, like you said in your talk, they can be 2 meters away and you won't even know they're there. So what are some more challenges in studying this species?
One of the challenge is they are also in small herds, so it's difficult to see them on that part too. And also where they are in the forest, it's difficult to go to these forests. For example, for us to go to our camp in the national park, we have 5 hours drive with 3 hours in the sand. So that's really bumpy roads. And after we have 1 more hour of boat to go there. So it's all organization, management difficulties. We need to bring also the DNA samples, for example, we struggle a lot to get them because we had some political issues in Gabon. We had the coup d'etat. So we changed the government and it was complicated to get some information or even the samples from the government, because we are working also with national parks, which is a national agency.
Okay, well that's one of the things that we've seen in all of our projects is that collaboration and cooperation from local governments is you can't get anything done unless you can actually work within the government and have partnerships. So that is a huge challenge. Someone's asking, do forest elephants live outside of the park borders? Or I'm sure they do. So what kind of percentage do you have that live within the protected areas versus without?
Well, as I was saying before, the previous studies shown that the forest elephants are using 93% of the whole country. So they are, of course, not all in the protected areas. We have 13 protected areas in Gabon, so it's a lot. But most of them just go outside because there are no boundaries around the protected areas, and most of places are still forests because they are doing logging, so cutting trees. But you still have some places where the forest is intact, even in these places. So the elephants just continue going there. And that's also a problem because it's not a protected area. So you can have some crops where the elephants want to go. And also the people will try to kill them if they are going too close to villages, crops, or just if they find them in the forest and for ivory purpose.
Yeah, so that actually flows right into the next question I have is, can you talk about any human-elephant conflict issues? It sounds like there definitely are some going on.
Yes, it's one of the main talk in Gabon at the moment. It's a human-elephant conflict. Mostly it's when elephants are going into the crops and it's difficult to get an herd of elephants out of the crops. And we also have some problems with the elephants going inside the villages because people are gathering in the big cities. So the villages outside are getting smaller and smaller with less people inside. So the elephants are not afraid anymore to going inside and just walking between houses. So that's a problem because if you scare an elephant, they can charge you, they can kill you or injure you. So that's one of the other problems with the elephants.
And that's extremely scary. I mean, here in the United States, right? People have a squirrel in their backyard or maybe a deer, but having an elephant walk between your house and your neighbor would be extremely scary. Um, so, can you talk about the climate in Gabon where you're working? Does it rain every day? Have you seen changes in the climate sort of as our Earth is changing?
Yes, so it's not raining every day, actually. We have some season, we have a dry season, we have a rainy season. So during the dry season, it's cloudy, so you almost don't see the sun for 2 months. It's between July and August. So it's just cloudy, but it's not raining. It's starting raining in September, almost every day. So it's usually sunny during the day, and starting 5 p.m. you have a thunderstorm coming for a few hours, and after it's done. So it's the same almost all over the year. So you have some moments when you have more rain during the day, it's that time of the year. Or you can have a small dry season, for example, at the end of December, when it's not raining for 2 weeks or something like that. And for the climate change, my family was living in Gabon for 18 years now. So we saw, unfortunately, some changes in the weather. We saw that the dry season is getting longer than before. So we had some drought issues in Gabon. So it was the first. We also have more problems with the rains because you can have rain. It's raining more than before, but on shorter times. So we had some floods too. It broke some bridges last year. So yes, it's a big issue even for climate change for us. Yeah.
Well, all right. I mean, that's part of what we're all fighting for, right? Is to deal with these adapting conditions so that we can preserve these species no matter what. We have someone in the chat asking how you got started in this line of work. So you mentioned that your family's been living there for 18 years, but maybe talk about your background and how you got into conservation.
Well, I started conservation when I was 10 years old. My father started to work in Gabon in a private reserve, a sanctuary for chimpanzees at first, and after we got some gorillas, we got so many other different kind of animals. And so, yes, I was 10 years old and I was holding a baby gorilla in my arms, and I was like, I want to protect these animals. I want to protect the forest where they are and all the other animals around. So yes, I started just with these animals, and after I kept continuing working with them. So first as just an intern, looking what's going on elsewhere. And after, yes, I want to live for nature.
That's wonderful. So your hands-on experience with animals really inspired your whole life path. I love that.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So you talked about the rainy season, dry season, and I know you mentioned that when it rains, it's harder to grab the DNA samples. Um, do the camera traps get affected by the weather? Is that something that you've had problems with?
Yes, the cameras are supposed to be waterproof, but the waterproof for well, northern countries and the waterproof for rainy forest is not the same kind of thing. We have a lot of, well, first when it's raining and you have to open the camera, you can have water going inside. So we have to stop checking on the cameras when it's starting to rain. If you look closely at the photo on the slide, you can see that it's raining too. So we have problems with our own cameras when it's raining all the time. we also have some problem with the high humidity. As it's raining, we have 100% of humidity, and the humidity can go inside the camera, especially if we have ants with their acid. They can put some small holes in the cameras, and after the humidity can go inside and it's get completely blurry. We can see anything on the camera, or it can even break down the camera.
Wow. I never thought about the ants going in the camera. That's crazy.
They are attracted to the electricity, actually. It's my theory.
Interesting. Okay. We've been getting reports, and I think you know this, that there's poaching going on in the Congo that keeps increasing. And it's thought that maybe the poachers might eventually move into Gabon. Have you noticed that the government has been able to work against this, or other projects, things that are maybe hopefully going to keep them out of this region?
Well, it's actually already the case because most of the poachers that the rangers are arresting are from Congo. Because 3 sides of the park are on the Congolese border. So it's easy for them to cross because there is no control over that. And also on the other side of the border, it's also a national park, but they poach so much in that park that there is no more things to hunt there. So yes, most of the poachers are going inside our park, and well, unfortunately, the only thing we can do is to trying to put them on trial or to bring them back to the border. For now, there is no specific program about that, just trying to arrest them as much as possible to scare them. Okay, the Gabon border is protected, so we don't want to go there. That's the only thing we can do right now.
Right. And have you noticed if there's government follow through as far as prosecuting and sentencing these poachers?
Unfortunately, not really. For Congolese people, usually they are just brought back to the border, so 2 days after they can go back to the park. And for Gabonese people, we have a problem of corruption in Gabon. And if they know someone if they just know someone, they will manage to get out of the process. So except if it's something really, really important as ivory trading, you won't have any prosecution for wildlife crime.
You mentioned there are savanna elephant populations bordering Gabon. Have you encountered any hybrids?
Well, for us, the savannas are really in the middle of the forest, so there are not any, at least in Gabon, there are not any hybrids. And I'm not sure about other places. I don't want to say any false information. It's a possibility, but I'm not sure they would want to mix actually.
Understandable. So expanding on poaching, are the poachers there just for the elephants, or are they targeting other species too?
So for us in the park, it's not really for ivory. Mostly it's for daily basis needs. So they will hunt small antelopes, maybe some monkeys, but to feed themselves, to feed their family, or to sell it at the market. It's not really elephants. They don't have the good firearms to kill them, so they will put more some snares, so it's not, the elephants are not threatened, at least in our park, by poachers. Usually they just avoid them. So it's mainly for other small animals to feed the family or to sell it.
Makes sense. Subsistence wildlife crime.
Yeah.
Someone's asking specifically about your study. From how many elephants were the 50 fecal samples? Were there a lot of samples, maybe multiple samples from one specific elephant? Can you talk about that?
So we're trying to do individual samples. So that means we are trying to get as much different individuals as possible. So even if we get several faces within the same area, we will try to identify. So this one is a young one, this one is an adult. So we can take a sample from this one and from the other one. But if we can't differentiate, is maybe we're not sure if this one is the same we did at two different places, we won't take, or we will take only for one, because we don't want to mix two different elephants.
Makes perfect sense.
So yes, usually we are trying just to do as much difference as possible.
Okay. And I'm guessing that you didn't see the elephants lay these boli. So when you look at the different piles, how do you determine one's from a younger elephant or one's from a older elephant, things like that?
Easily, actually, because it's the size first. For an adult or for a smaller one, the size will not be the same. And also the color, or if you can see some different seeds, because they want it the same thing if they are not from the same herd, because they can come from another place of the park. So yes, you can see with the color, with the size, mainly. Also, they prefer to do some, how to say it? They prefer to do it in one place. So usually if it's really far away and it's still the same freshness, it won't be the same individual.
Excellent. Good to know. Someone's asking if you have any sort of community outreach or community programs. Do you work with any community members in your project?
Not really. We have only three villages next to the border of the park, and there aren't many people living there because, as I was saying, most of the people want to go to the city for children because the children are going back to the village only for holidays. So yes, in some villages you can sometimes just find 3 people, 2 people. So that's not much. We are not going personal for our project any community process, but we have other partners in the park who are doing some community work. So we are sharing the work for the park.
Excellent. Okay. And then in general, because this is a sort of newly recognized species, can you tell us why it's important that we study them and treat them maybe differently than savanna elephants? What's the conservation benefit of recognizing the 2 different species?
Well, first, to say they are endangered species, and that's almost not the case anymore for the savanna elephants. Fortunately, their population is getting better for the savanna elephants, and that's not the case for the forest elephants. Also, you cannot protect an animal that you doesn't know about. If you don't know how, because for example, the life range for the forest elephant is different than the savanna elephants. For example, you need 31 years to get a new baby from an elephant, to get a baby, to get a whole generation span. And it's 28 for savanna elephants. So that's not the same. You have also, they do not feed from the same vegetation, because of course they don't have the same vegetation. And if you are cutting all the trees that they are feeding from, of course they will go to the crops and try to steal the human food. So it's, if you don't understand an animal properly, you can't really protect it, because you won't know where they would want to go, how they react if they see some people. That's so many different kind of interesting stuff that you need to know if you want to protect the animals. Yeah.
That's perfect. That's excellent. We're making that case all the time, that the more you know about the animals, the better you're able to protect them. So that's excellent. along that line, do you have any idea of the male to female ratio of animals in your study area, and if there's a healthy breeding population?
Well, I don't really have a ratio, but we had kind of map of the animals on our camera traps. We found out that in some places you will only find big males, and in other places you will mostly find the females and their babies. So that means that they prefer some places than others, and that yes, in some cameras I only have males, so that's really the border of their area, and the females and the baby only stay in one place where it's more interesting for them. So that was kind of interesting on that part. For the male-female ratio, I can be sure I don't want to give you false figures right now because we didn't finish all the analysis. So yeah.
No, but that's all very interesting. I look forward to the subsequent analysis and all of that. Speaking of the data that you have, are there any collaborations? Is the government interested? Are they trying to use it to help protect the elephants? Maybe talk about any opportunities there.
Yes, so this project was started with the government. It was something they wanted to do. They asked us, the partners, to work with them to work on the elephants. So that was something they wanted to. And we are working with them, for example, for the DNA samples, because we are sending them to the government lab to do the analysis. And we are also working with them to analyze the camera trap videos. We will send them to one of their partners to do the analysis. So we are working along with them because they want to do some work on the elephants, because they are aware that the elephants are important within the country, and that well, if you don't know them, if you don't know the population, you won't be able to protect them or to avoid human-wildlife conflict.
Absolutely. Some follow-up about males. You said they're living sort of on the outskirts. Do they leave their preferred area to go breed with the females, or do the females go out to them, or have you noticed?
We noticed that the males are going to the places where the females are. Most of the time, the females don't really leave the area where they like to be. But you can see big males around the places where the females are. On the other side, it's not really the case. And we also, I'm really looking forward to that, because it's just my theory for now, but we noticed that elephants are not really the males in that period of time. In October, November, we don't really see males where we are right now. They are only gathering where the females are. So maybe there is a special season or something interesting on that part. And we also saw many babies in June, July. So maybe there is a season when they like to reproduce or not. I don't know. It will be really interesting to see.
Agreed. That will be very interesting to see. And one thing all of our followers always want to know is, what can they do to help? What can people in Western countries in America do to help?
Well, it's the same as everywhere. We are sometimes lacking funds to help the elephants. We would like to develop other projects. We would like to, there are so many things to do, actually. Volunteering, sometimes in some places, helping just by giving donations. Yeah, or just change everything and come and help the elephants in Africa.
That's right. You know, I think your life span, or your experience maybe inspires people to go out there and actually get their hands dirty. I love that. Someone's asking about, have you, and maybe you haven't analyzed the data, so we don't know, but have you noticed any survival rates of the baby elephants in your region?
Again, I don't have the figures, but unfortunately, I don't think that the survival rate is really high. Because there are so many problems. We saw, for example, a baby stuck in the mud. Well, unfortunately, it was already dead. It was a few years ago. But you can have some diseases that can kill them. Also, if they are not well protected, as it's small herds, leopards can even try to get a baby when they are really young. Males, sometimes if they, while fighting, can kill just by accident a baby, by almost stepping on it, as they are so big. There's such a big difference between males and females, wide size. So yes, I'm not sure about the whole survival rate yet. It will be really interesting to see. And that's also one of the problems. We don't know so much about the forest elephants. And that's why we really need to learn more about them and to do more studies about them.
Absolutely. And the more we know, the better we can tailor conservation efforts to protect them. Well, I think we are wrapping up. We've gotten to most of the questions, or I think all of the questions. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you think people need to know?
Well, what to say? That yes, we don't know much about the forest elephants. They are really incredible species. And I think that, well, all elephants needs to be protected, but as we don't know much about these ones, there's a really big issues right now to protect them because they are really, really endangered. Their habitat is getting destroyed so quickly. And for the ivory too, as there are less and less savanna elephants with tusk, actually, because of selection, well, they are starting to get to the forest elephants too. And as they are not really well protected and not in protected areas, we can have some big, big problems in the following years.
Well, I think that is a great way to sort of wrap up. A good way to inspire people to go out and do more, whether it's donating or volunteering or just changing your consumption habits so that you're buying things that don't damage habitat. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to throw it back over to Julie to wrap up, but I know that I really enjoyed nerding out on forest elephants this morning with you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. We've just all learned some really fascinating new things about forest elephants, and I really enjoyed your presentation. If everybody would like to put their cameras on, and let's give Claire a big round of applause and thank you for presenting today. It was really wonderful. And if you'd like to help forest elephants, we put a link there in the chat that you can go to if you'd like to help support Claire and the forest elephants. That would be awesome. And thank you all for joining us.
Thank you so much.